Imagine you're taking the TOEFL reading test. Everything is going smoothly until you encounter a word you've never seen before. Suddenly, your confidence disappears. Should you stop and try to figure it out? Should you guess? What if that one word affects your entire understanding of the passage? Here's the surprising truth. The highest TOEFL scorers don't know every English word, and they don't need to. They have a powerful skill that helps them unlock unfamiliar vocabulary in seconds using the clues hidden around it. In today's episode, you'll discover how to guess word meanings quickly, accurately, and confidently so you can read faster, understand more, and boost your TOEFL score.
It really is, it's the ultimate paradigm shift for anyone who's facing a high-stakes academic test.
Right.
Because you're stepping away from that paralyzing anxiety of the unknown, and you're stepping right into like a framework of total control.
Man, I love that framing, control. Because the core mission of our deep dive today is to really fundamentally change how you, the listener, look at academic reading and listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to take you from being this stressed out, memorizer of flashcards, the kind of person who stays up until like 3:00 a.m. cramming definitions that you'll just forget by breakfast anyway.
We've all been there.
Oh, yeah. But we want to turn you into a highly observant clue detective. We're talking about rewiring how your brain responds when it hits a massive roadblock in a really dense text.
Which is, it's an incredibly empowering psychological shift.
Yeah.
We really need to stop viewing an unknown word as like a failure of your preparation.
Right, like you didn't study hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on. It's not a roadblock. It's not some trap designed to humiliate you. It is simply a highly solvable puzzle, and the author has graciously left evidence all over the crime scene for you to find.
That's such a good way to look at it.
Once you realize that the text itself is actively trying to help you, the fear just kind of vanishes.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the first thing we really need to do is bust what I like to call the 100% comprehension myth.
Oh, this is a big one.
Right. There is this pervasive, lingering belief out there, especially among highly motivated learners, that to master English or to conquer an academic test, you simply need to memorize the entire dictionary. You need to know it all.
Which is physically impossible.
Let's look at the actual numbers, because English contains roughly 170,000 words in current active use. That is a staggering mountain of vocabulary.
It's an insurmountable mountain, frankly. To put that in perspective, if you learned 20 new words every single day, it would still take you decades to get through that list.
Decades.
Yeah. And it gets more fascinating when you look at how native speakers actually operate. Highly educated native English speakers, we're talking people with master's degrees, PhDs, people who read extensively for a living, they only actively use a tiny fraction of that total.
Wait, really? Like how much?
Usually their active vocabulary sits somewhere between 20,000 and 35,000 words.
Wow.
So that leaves well over 100,000 words that even university professors might rarely use or, encounter in their daily lives.
Okay, wait. If native speakers don't even know all these words, why does the test intentionally include them? Isn't that just objectively cruel? Are the test makers just sitting in a room somewhere trying to make people miserable by pulling the most obscure terms out of a hat?
It absolutely feels cruel in the moment when the clock is ticking, right?
Yeah.
But we have to understand the underlying philosophy behind the assessment. The test is not a memory contest. It is a highly calibrated simulation. It meticulously simulates the environment of a rigorous university.
Right.
And in a university environment, whether you're an international student experiencing it for the first time or, a native speaker who has lived down the street from the campus their whole life, you're going to encounter unfamiliar, dense, highly specific academic jargon on a daily basis.
Right, like research papers.
Yes, you'll read
Okay.
papers filled with words you've never seen. So the test makers are asking one fundamental question. Can this person function when they inevitably hit something they don't know?
It kind of reminds me of reading the news in your native language. Think about it for a second. When you open a newspaper or click on a complex article in your mother tongue about, say, macroeconomic monetary policy.
Light reading.
Right, light reading for a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Or the latest breakthrough in CRISPR biotechnology. Do you know the formal dictionary definition of every single technical term? Usually not.
No, of course not.
But you don't panic. You don't throw the newspaper away or just slam your laptop shut. Your brain just naturally autofills the gaps based on the tone of the article, the words surrounding the hard word, and just your general world knowledge.
That is spot on. Your brain does it automatically, almost invisibly in your native language. The ultimate goal is to port that exact same subconscious skill over to your English reading.
Right.
This is undeniably why vocabulary and context questions exist. When the test asks, the word X is closest in meaning to, they aren't checking if you memorized X on a Tuesday 3 months ago.
They don't care about your flashcards.
Definitively not. They are testing your logical reasoning. They want to see if you can observe the textual habitat that the word lives in and deduce its function.
I think we need an illustrative example to really ground this concept. Let's walk the listener through a specific sentence.
Sounds good.
I'm going to read it slowly, and I want you to imagine seeing this on a screen with the timer counting down. The committee's decision was met with widespread approbation. Faculty members praised the new policy and quickly adopted it across departments.
Oh, okay. Approbation.
Yeah, the target word is approbation. That is a heavy, intimidating $5 word. If I'm a test taker, I see that, realize I've never studied it, and my initial instinct is to just freeze.
And that freeze is what we were trying to cure. So let's look at the evidence left at the scene. You do not need a dictionary here. You just need to look at the punctuation.
The punctuation?
Yeah, what is sitting right next to our intimidating word? Right after approbation, we have a semicolon.
Okay, a semicolon, which, let's be honest, a lot of people just gloss over when they read.
Which is a mistake. Because a semicolon in academic writing is essentially a flashing neon arrow pointing forward.
A flashing neon arrow. I like that.
It's the author saying, I am about to explain, expand upon, or clarify the thing I just said. So the mystery word is approbation. What comes after the semicolon?
Let's see. Faculty members praised the new policy and quickly adopted it.
Right. Praised and adopted.
Those are incredibly positive, supportive actions.
Definitively positive. So logic dictates that approbation cannot possibly mean anger. It cannot mean confusion. It cannot mean rejection. It must signify positive support, approval, or praise.
Wow. You solved the puzzle without ever opening a dictionary, purely through logical deduction and paying attention to a single punctuation mark.
Exactly, or rather, meticulously piecing it together.
Which brings us to a really critical transition. If this is a reasoning skill rather than just a desperate guessing game, it must have tangible benefits beyond just answering that one specific multiple-choice question correctly. It has to impact the whole ecosystem of the test experience, right?
It fundamentally changes the entire ecosystem of your reading ability. There are 4 major pillars or foundational benefits of mastering this specific type of contextual inference.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first pillar is reading efficiency. We have to constantly remember the brutal constraints of this environment. You are under a strict time limit, typically 54 to 72 minutes, to get through 3 or 4 incredibly dense academic passages.
And they're like 700 words each. That is a punishing pace. You're basically sprinting through a marathon.
And you simply cannot maintain that momentum if you slam on the brakes every single time you see an unfamiliar word. If you stop, stare at the ceiling, and try to search your mental archives for a word you might have vaguely seen on a flashcard a year ago, you are burning precious seconds.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Mastering context clues allows you to maintain your reading rhythm. You glide over the bumps instead of crashing into them.
The second pillar ties right into that rhythm, which is time management. It's the difference between flipping a coin in a panic and making an evidence-based decision.
Yes.
I like to compare it to a detective walking into a room. A bad detective just walks in, gets a general vibe of the room, and guesses what happened based on a feeling.
Like, oh, it feels like a robbery.
Right. But a good detective stops. They look at the broken glass on the floor. They note the open window. They see the muddy footprints leading away, and they make an informed inference. When you use context, you stop stalling. You make your logical choice based on the textual footprints, and you move forward.
That is perfectly stated. And moving forward with that kind of evidence-backed confidence brings us to the third pillar. Better comprehension overall.
Because you're actually understanding it now.
Right. It's a beautiful, almost accidental byproduct of the clue detective method. When you are actively hunting for context clues, when you're meticulously looking at how one sentence contrasts with the next, or how one specific clause causes a reaction in another, you are inadvertently mapping the logical structure of the entire passage.
So you aren't just figuring out one isolated word. You are deeply understanding the author's broader argument.
Spot on.
You're seeing the matrix. You're seeing how the sentences hold hands and interact with one another.
Which perfectly sets up the fourth and perhaps most vital pillar, reduced test anxiety. What's fascinating here is the actual biology of test taking.
Oh, I love the biological aspect of this.
Yeah, when you encounter an unknown word and you rely solely on your memory, your brain perceives that gap in knowledge as a threat. It triggers a mild freeze response. The amygdala activates, cortisol and stress hormones flood your system, and that biological panic actively, chemically inhibits your ability to recall language.
That is wild.
Yeah.
So the stress literally locks the door to the vocabulary you actually do know. You sabotage yourself just by panicking.
It undeniably does. It's a physiological response. But when you have a structural approach, when you view the unknown word not as a threat, but as a puzzle with guaranteed clues waiting to be found, you bypass that biological freeze response.
You bypass it completely.
You transform sheer panic into a cold, calculating confidence. You have a reliable system, and systems conquer anxiety.
Systems conquer anxiety. I want everyone listening to write that down. So since informed inference requires evidence, we need to know what kind of evidence we are looking for.
Let's catalog it.
Yeah, let's catalog the actual types of clues the authors leave behind. We're going to break this down into several distinct tools you can add to your tool belt. Let's start with what we call direct evidence. This is where the author practically hands the answer to you on a silver platter.
These are the most generous clues you will find. The first category here is definition clues. In academic writing, authors often introduce a highly technical term, and then recognizing that their audience might not know it, they simply define it in the very same sentence.
But if I'm panicking, I might read right past the definition. What kind of signals should our listeners be actively scanning for to catch these?
You want to train your eyes to jump to phrases like is defined as, refers to, that is, which is, or even the simple humble word, or.
Or, just O-R.
Yep. And crucially, as we mentioned with the semicolon earlier, pay special attention to punctuation. Dashes and commas are frequently used to bracket a definition right next to the difficult word.
Let's explore some tangible examples. How about the word biodiversity? Here's the sentence. Biodiversity, which refers to the variety of life found in a particular ecosystem, is declining rapidly in many regions.
The structural signal phrase there is which refers to. It's acting specifically like an equal sign in a math equation.
Biodiversity equals.
The variety of life found in a particular ecosystem. The author did all the heavy lifting for you. You don't need to know the Greek roots, you just need to read the second half of the sentence.
Let's try another one. Sedentary behavior, that is, spending long periods sitting with little physical movement, has been linked to numerous health problems. That one uses dashes.
The M dash is a phenomenally powerful tool in English. It creates a visual pause, a structural aside. The phrase, that is, immediately follows the first dash, leaving absolutely no doubt that the words contained between those two dashes are the strict, literal definition of sedentary.
So sedentary carefully means sitting with little movement.
Perfectly stated.
And one more in this category. Anthropology is the scientific study of human societies and cultures, including their development over time.
The simplest signal of all is the. Anthropology equals the study of human societies. When you are reading under intense time pressure, train your eyes to catch these microsignals. They're free points.
Okay, let's look at the second type of direct evidence. Synonym clues. This is where the author pairs the hard word with an easier word that means the exact same thing. They usually connect them with words like and, also, likewise, or they group them together in a list.
Writers do this to create rhythm, balance, and flow in their sentences. Let's look at an example to see how the rhythm works to your advantage.
Here's a sentence. The professor's lecture was succinct and brief, lasting only 15 minutes.
The difficult word is succinct. The easy, accessible word is brief. They're connected by the simple conjunction and. Because they're modifying the very same thing, the lecture you can safely deduce that succinct is a direct synonym for brief. It means short, concise, to the point.
Got it. Let's do another one. The explorers were intrepid, fearless, even when facing extreme danger.
Here, the author uses a comma to set up the synonym. Intrepid, fearless. In grammar, we call these appositives. They sit right next to each other, describing the same noun, the explorers. If you know what fearless means, you instantly know what intrepid means.
Scientists were astonished, utterly amazed by the unexpected results of the experiment.
Again, the difficult word astonished is immediately followed by a comma and the phrase utterly amazed. The writer is amplifying their point by repeating the concept in simpler, more dramatic terms.
I have a strategic question about this, though.
Sure, go ahead.
Are writers doing this intentionally just to be nice to readers who might have a smaller vocabulary? Or is this just a natural byproduct of good academic writing? Like, why would a PhD write succinct and brief when they could just write brief and save space?
That is a brilliant question. It's a hallmark of clear academic communication. Often, a writer wants to use a highly specific, perhaps slightly nuanced academic term because it carries intellectual weight, like succinct.
Right.
But they also want to ensure their core message isn't lost on a broader, interdisciplinary audience. So they pair it with a more accessible word brief to anchor the meaning. They're intentionally bridging the gap between high-level academic discourse and general readability.
That makes a lot of sense. So direct matches, definitions, and synonyms are great when the author is feeling generous. But what if they don't give you the exact word? What if instead they make their point by telling you what the word isn't T?
The plot thickens.
It does. Let's move into our next tool, relational evidence. This is all about finding meaning through friction, through opposites. We'll start with antonym clues at the word level.
This is where the author tells you what a word means by explicitly outlining its opposite. The signal words to watch out for here are unlike, as opposed to rather than, and instead of.
Let's run an example. Unlike her gregarious sister, Maria preferred to spend evenings alone, reading quietly.
The signal word is unlike. It sets up a seesaw. On one side of the seesaw, we have Maria, who spends her evenings alone reading quietly. On the other side is her sister, who is described as gregarious.
Right.
Because of the word unlike, the sister must be the direct opposite of someone who sits alone quietly. Therefore, gregarious must accurately mean highly sociable, outgoing, someone who loves crowds.
It's almost like a math equation where you have a negative sign outside the parentheses. You just flip the value of whatever's inside. Let's try another. The professor's tone was usually candid, but today his answers seemed evasive and unclear.
The pivot word here is but. Today he is evasive and unclear. Usually he is candid. So candid must be the opposite of evasive and unclear. Candid carefully means straightforward, honest, open.
How about this one? The medication is meant to alleviate pain, not worsen it.
The phrase not worsen it creates the explicit contrast. The medication's purpose is to alleviate, which must be the opposite of worsen. So alleviate means to reduce, to soothe, to make better.
Now that's at the word level, comparing one trait to another, but authors also do this on a macro scale, right? With entire complex ideas. We call these contrast clues.
Yes, at the idea level, the sentence sets up two conflicting situations or realities. The signal words here get a bit heavier, more academic, although, despite, whereas, nevertheless.
Let's look at one. Although the lecture was supposed to be a brief overview, the professor's discourse on the topic became remarkably exhaustive.
The word although, right at the beginning, tells us our expectations are about to be subverted. We expect a brief overview, but the reality delivered is the opposite. It became exhaustive.
Yeah.
So exhaustive cannot possibly mean brief. It must mean incredibly long, comprehensive, covering every possible detail.
Here's another. The new policy was meant to be lucid, yet most employees found the instructions confusing.
The pivot word is yet. The reality was confusing. The expectation was lucid. The opposite of confusing is clear, easy to understand, transparent. That is the definitive definition of lucid.
Despite his reticence in large meetings, he spoke freely and confidently in one-on-one conversations.
Despite sets up the friction. In private, he speaks freely and confidently. In large meetings, he displays reticence. The opposite of speaking freely is keeping quiet, holding back. So reticence meticulously means a hesitation to speak, being reserved.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, why do authors rely on contrast so heavily in academic texts?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is all about the deep rhetorical power of contrast. Human brains are biologically hardwired to notice anomalies. We notice when things don't fit the expected pattern.
We like patterns.
We do. When an author uses contrast, they're purposefully highlighting an anomaly. They're saying, look at how wildly different this situation is from the norm. By doing that, the shift becomes a massive neon sign pointing directly to the definition of the unknown word. It creates a narrative tension that makes the meaning unforgettable to the reader.
So if contrast shows us what something isn't, how do authors show us what something does? That leads us perfectly into our next toolkit, logical evidence. This is all about deducing meaning through actions and categories. The first tool here is example clues.
Authors absolutely love examples. When they introduce a broad, abstract category, they almost always follow it up with concrete, tangible instances to ground the reader. You are looking for signals like such as, including, and for instance. The strategy here is incredibly simple but brilliant. Read the examples and ask yourself, what do these specific items have in common?
Let's test that strategy. Many invasive species, such as the zebra mussel and the kudzu vine, spread rapidly and disrupt local ecosystems. Okay, so the target phrase is invasive species. The examples provided are zebra mussels and kudzu vines.
Now, even if you have never in your life heard of a zebra mussel or a kudzu vine, look at what the sentence tells you they do. What is their action?
They spread rapidly and disrupt local ecosystems.
Right. So what is an invasive species? It's an organism that enters a new area, multiplies out of control, and causes environmental damage. The examples, combined with their stated actions, define the term perfectly.
Several cognitive biases, including confirmation bias and anchoring, distort how people interpret new information.
What do confirmation bias and anchoring share? The sentence explicitly tells us they distort how people interpret new information. Therefore, cognitive biases are mental flaws or psychological patterns that warp our judgment and logic.
Let's do one more. Renewable resources like solar energy and wind power are increasingly replacing fossil fuels.
The examples are solar energy and wind power. What do the sun and the wind have in common? I never run out. They are infinite. So a renewable resource is definitively a source of energy that naturally replenishes itself.
That is incredibly satisfying. It's like sorting a bunch of strange items into a bucket and then just reading the label on the outside of the bucket to know what they all are.
I like that analogy.
Thanks. Now let's look at the other type of logical evidence, cause and effect clues. This is where you really have to play detective with events.
The logic here is airtight. Something happens, and it naturally causes a specific logical result. The signal words are because, consequently, led to, due to. The trick here is to match the intensity. Extreme causes lead to extreme effects. Mild causes lead to mild effects.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I always compare this to watching a movie with the sound turned off.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine you're sitting in your living room, the TV is muted, and you are watching a scene play out. You see a character drop to their knees, crying hysterically, clutching their face, collapsing on the floor. That is an extreme intense effect. Very intense. Even without the audio, without hearing the dialogue, you know the cause wasn't a mild inconvenience. They didn't just spill a cup of coffee or misplace their keys. It was a major tragedy. You reverse engineer the cause from the sheer intensity of the effect. Let's look at some sentences and apply this. Because the soil was arid, farmers struggled to grow crops without constant irrigation.
Okay, the effect. Farmers had to constantly irrigate just to get anything to grow at all. Why do you need constant, relentless irrigation? Because there is no water. The cause is the arid soil. Therefore, arid accurately means extremely dry, parched, completely lacking moisture.
The negotiations were so protracted that both sides grew exhausted after months without agreement.
Look at the effect. Extreme exhaustion after months of failure to agree. What kind of negotiations cause that level of fatigue? Long, dragged-out, endless ones. Therefore, protracted means extended in time, lasting much longer than expected.
The volcano's eruption was so cataclysmic that entire villages were destroyed within hours.
This is a perfect example of your silent movie analogy, matching intensity. The effect is the total, absolute destruction of entire villages in mere hours. That is an absolute worst-case scenario. Therefore, the cataclysmic eruption cannot just mean loud or big. It must mean disastrous, apocalyptic, causing massive and violent upheaval.
Okay, I feel like we have a massive arsenal of clues now, but I have to ask the nightmare scenario question. What if the author leaves zero contextual evidence? What if there is no comma, no because, no contrast, no examples, just a flat, dense sentence? What is the break glass in case of emergency tool for a panicked test taker?
When the sentence utterly refuses to give you any external help, you have to look internally at the word itself. You break the word down into its anatomical parts, prefixes, roots, and suffixes. Academic English is heavily constructed from Latin and Greek building blocks. If you know the blocks, you can often assemble a rough meaning.
Let's turn this into a bit of a game. I'll read off some common ones and let's dissect them. If I see the prefix pre, like in predict.
Pre means before, so predict is to say something before it happens.
What about sub, like subordinate?
Sub means under or below. A submarine goes under the water. A subordinate is someone ranked below you in a hierarchy.
Inter, like interaction.
Between or among. action between people.
We have these value-based prefixes, right? Like bene and benevolent.
Yes, bene means good or well. Someone who is benevolent wishes you well. Conversely, mal, like in malfunction, means bad or poorly. A machine that malfunctions is operating poorly.
Suffixes are huge too. Ology, like biology or anthropology.
It strictly means the study of something.
Tion or sion, like expansion.
Denotes an action or a state of being.
Able or ebable, like flexible.
Capable of flexible.
And let's not forget negation prefixes. Dis, as in disprove.
Meaning the opposite of.
Or co-and-come-cut, like collaborate.
Meaning together, laboring together. Now, I have to issue a very firm, non-negotiable warning here as an expert in test strategy. This is crucial. Word part analysis should never be your first move. It is exclusively a backup tool.
Wait, really? Why? Because it seems so incredibly scientific. It feels like you're unlocking the math of the language.
It seems scientific, but the history of the English language is incredibly messy. English is a massive collision of Latin, Greek, French, and Germanic roots. Because of this chaotic history, word parts can be incredibly misleading without context. For example, the prefix often means not, like invisible means not visible, but what about the word inflammable?
Oh, right. Inflammable doesn't mean not flammable. It actually means highly capable of catching fire.
Spot on. If you rely purely on word parts without checking the surrounding sentence, you can walk right into a linguistic trap. Always look for sentence-level clues first. Context is king. Word parts are just your parachute when the plane is going down.
Okay, that is a crucial warning. Context first, anatomy second. Now that we have all these tools, definitions, synonyms, antonyms, contrast examples, cause and effect, and word parts, it is time for a live fire exercise. We call this the Think-aloud reading clinic.
Sounds fun.
We want to show you how a high-scoring student actually thinks in real time. We are going to deeply dissect some specific sentences. Instead of just giving you the answer, I'm going to act as the student. I'll read the text, try to process it, maybe stumble a bit, and our expert will guide my logic step by step. Let's do this.
I'm ready. Let's process the evidence together.
Okay, let me try applying this one. I'm looking at this sentence from a practice passage. Despite the team's meticulous planning, the experiment still produced unexpected results.
Okay, so the target word is meticulous.
Right. My first instinct here is to panic, because I don't use the word meticulous in my daily life. But if I push that aside and start scanning, looking left, looking right, at the very beginning of the sentence, there it is. Despite.
Excellent. Your brain immediately flagged the pivot. Despite is a contrast signal. What is the sentence telling you about the relationship between the actions?
It's telling me that an action happened, but the expected result did not follow. So the expected result of planning is success. But the experiment still produced unexpected results, which usually implies negative or failed results in this context.
Correct. The reality was a failure. But because of the word despite, the planning itself must have been the opposite of a failure. It wasn't sloppy. It wasn't careless.
So meticulous must mean extremely careful, highly detailed, leaving no stone unturned.
Spot on. Let's try another.
Okay, sentence 2. The professor's argument was cogent. Even skeptical students found themselves agreeing by the end of the lecture. The word is cogent. I'm scanning. I see a semicolon.
And what does the semicolon tell us?
It means the second half of the sentence is directly explaining the first half. So I just need to figure out what happened in the second half. Skeptical students found themselves agreeing. Skeptical students are people who naturally doubt things. If a skeptic is forced to agree with an argument, what kind of argument is it?
It must be an incredibly strong one. Therefore, cogent carefully means clear, logical, and undeniably convincing. You are doing great. Keep going.
All right, sentence 3. Unlike the lavish ceremony held the previous year, this year's event was austere, with no decorations and a minimal guest list.
Target word is austere.
2 big clues jump out at me here. First, the signal word, unlike, right at the front. That sets up my seesaw, my antonym relationship. The opposite of this year's event was lavish. But if I don't know what lavish means, I might still be stuck.
Which is why the author gave you a backup clue. Keep reading.
With no decorations and a minimal guest list. The sentence literally gives me a definition of the current event. If it has no decorations and a minimal guest list, it's very plain. So austere definitively means simple, strict, without luxury or adornment. And by extension, lavish must mean rich and extravagant. I got 2 for 1.
Beautiful deduction. Let's look at one about people.
Several renowned scientists, including Marie Curie and Albert Einstein, made groundbreaking contributions to modern physics. Target word, renowned.
What's the clue?
The word including tells me that Curie and Einstein are examples of the target word. What is the defining characteristic of Marie Curie and Albert Einstein in the context of global science? They are absolute legends. They are known by everyone on Earth. Therefore, renowned must mean famous, celebrated, highly respected in a specific field.
Let's do one that requires a bit more cause and effect reasoning.
Because the river had become heavily polluted, local wildlife populations declined sharply over the following decade. Target word, decline.
Okay, walk me through it.
Because signals a strict cause and effect relationship. The cause is heavy pollution. Pollution is toxic. It is a severely negative event. So the effect on wildlife must therefore be negative. Populations wouldn't grow or stabilize in toxic water. They would die off. Therefore, declined means decreased, dropped, fell in numbers.
Notice how you are matching the negative tone of the cause with the negative tone of the effect. Let's look at a sentence structure that often trips people up.
The novel's plot is convoluted, weaving together multiple timelines, hidden identities, and unexpected betrayals. Target word, convoluted. Okay, I see a comma followed by a list, weaving together multiple timelines, hidden identities, and unexpected betrayals. This acts as an extended example clue, right?
It does, and what do all those elements have in common?
All of those elements require massive mental effort to keep track of. They are not simple, they are tangled up. Therefore, convoluted means highly complicated, intricately involved, difficult to unravel or follow.
Let's do one more to solidify the strategy.
The committee's findings were ambiguous, leaving room for at least 3 different interpretations. Target word, ambiguous. The phrase, leaving room for at least 3 different interpretations, is essentially defining the result of the findings. If something can be interpreted in 3 completely different ways by 3 different people, it means the original message was not clear at all. It lacked definitive boundaries. Ambiguous means open to multiple meanings, unclear or intentionally vague.
You've got this down perfectly.
Okay, I feel like I'm really getting the hang of this on paper. It's like doing a crossword puzzle where the clues are built right into the grid. But here is my concern. What happens when the professor is talking at 1,000,000 miles an hour in the listening section, and I can't see the commas?
That's a valid concern.
That brings us to context clues in audio. Because professors use the exact same rhetorical patterns when they speak to help students follow along, right?
Yeah.
They don't do it to test you. They do it because they want to be understood.
That is a profoundly vital point. When a professor is lecturing, they know exactly when they are dropping a difficult, dense word. They can literally see the blank stares spreading across the lecture hall.
I've given that stare.
We all have. So they instinctively weave context clues into their spoken sentences to bring the students back on board. The distinct challenge for the test taker is that in audio, you don't have visual commas or dashes. You cannot scan backward. You have to listen for vocal pauses, intonation shifts, and structural signposts that signal a clue is coming.
Let's walk through an audio visualization of these terms. Imagine you're sitting in a biology lecture, taking furious notes, and you hear this. Coral reefs are remarkably resilient ecosystems. Even after a severe storm damages large sections of reef, many species can recover within a few years, rebuilding structures that seem completely destroyed. The key word is resilient.
If you are listening closely, you hear the cause and effect narrative playing out in real time. The professor describes massive damage, a severe storm, but then the vocal tone shifts. It becomes more optimistic. Many species can recover within a few years. That recovery is the explicit effect of being resilient. So resilient is the ability to bounce back, to recover quickly from catastrophic damage.
Okay, now let's imagine we're in an economics lecture. The professor says, during the recession, consumer spending became more austere. Families cut back on travel, dining out, and non-essential purchases, focusing only on necessities. The word is austere, which we saw earlier in reading.
The professor drops the heavy word austere, and then immediately, almost without taking a breath, lists specific behaviors. Cutting travel, stopping dining out, ditching non-essentials. These are spoken examples. If you hear that list, you instantly realize austere in an economic sense means strictly restricted, frugal, stripped down to bare survival mode.
Moving over to a psychology lecture. Unlike explicit memory, which involves consciously recalling facts and events, implicit memory operates below conscious awareness. Think of riding a bicycle without thinking through each step. Target word, implicit.
The very first word of the sentence is the most important. Unlike. The professor defines explicit as conscious recall and then creates a verbal contrast with implicit. To drive it home, they give a physical, relatable example, riding a bike without thinking. Implicit definitively means operating automatically, unconsciously, without direct conscious effort.
Let's jump to history. The treaty was the culmination of nearly a decade of negotiations, the final result after years of disagreement, compromise, and slow progress. The word is culmination.
Now, in a reading passage, we would see an M dash here. In audio, you will hear a slight, deliberate pause. The professor says negotiations, takes a breath, and says the final result after years of. That breath serves as the verbal dash. It introduces a direct spoken definition. Culmination is undeniably the final peak or result of a long, arduous effort.
Finally, environmental science. Because the region experienced prolonged drought, crop yields plummeted, and farmers were forced to seek alternative water sources. The target word is plummeted.
Listen to the chain of events as they are spoken. Prolonged drought is a severe negative cause. What logically happens to crops when there is no water for months? They die. So the word plummeted must describe a dramatic, catastrophic, negative drop. To plummet means to fall rapidly and steeply.
So the evidence is absolutely everywhere. It's woven into the text, it's echoing in the audio, it's built into the very fabric of academic communication, which raises a really frustrating question. If these clues are everywhere, just waiting to be found, why do so many smart, incredibly well-prepared test takers still mess this up?
Because knowing the theory of something and breaking ingrained bad habits are two completely different things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Test stress makes people regress to their comfort zones. And unfortunately, their comfort zones are often filled with counterproductive behaviors. We need to dissect the 5 fatal mistakes students make and then introduce the ultimate actionable solution, the SIPMP method.
Let's hit those 5 common mistakes first. Mistake number 1. Translating every word. I see this constantly with language learners. Students encounter an English sentence, and in their head, they are frantically trying to convert every single word into their native language before they even try to understand the whole concept.
It is the single most damaging habit you can have on a timed academic test. It wastes massive, unrecoverable amounts of time, and it completely shatters your reading flow. You are losing the forest because you are meticulously examining the microscopic texture of every piece of bark on every tree.
Beautifully put.
Thank you. To succeed, you must train your brain to think English to English. You need to grasp the conceptual meaning of the sentence as a whole, not the literal dictionary translation of its individual parts.
Mistake number 2. Overusing dictionaries during practice. Now, obviously, dictionaries are incredibly helpful tools, but some students have them open right next to their textbook, and the very second they see a word they don't know, their hand shoots out and they look it up.
That is a critical developmental error because it prevents you from ever building the inference muscle. If you always walk with crutches, your legs never get strong. On test day, the dictionary is gone. It is stripped away. If you haven't actively practiced sitting in the severe discomfort of an unknown word and forcing yourself to hunt for the context clues, you will utterly panic when you are forced to do it for the first time under real stakes.
Mistake number 3. Ignoring context entirely. This is when a student guesses based purely on how a word looks or sounds. They think, oh, the word ingenious looks just like ingenuous, so it must mean the exact same thing, without actually reading the rest of the sentence.
They fall directly into the trap of visual resemblance. It leads to incredibly confident yet completely wrong answers. English is absolutely full of false friends and deceptive word roots. You cannot judge a word solely by its cover. You must look at the neighborhood it lives in.
Mistake number 4. Guessing without evidence. This is jumping to a vibe. A student reads a dense paragraph, gets a general sad or negative vibe from it, and just picks the saddest sounding option in the multiple choice list.
Inference is not feeling. It is not an emotion. It is strict logic. It is a mathematical equation based on syntax and grammar. If you cannot point your physical finger to the specific word or punctuation mark in the sentence that absolutely proves your guess, you are not inferring. You are just gambling. And these high-stakes tests are specifically designed to punish gamblers.
And mistake number 5, the one-track mind. This is when a student learns about context clues, but they only ever look for definition clues. They only scan for the commas and the is defined as phrases. If they don't see those obvious freebies, they give up, completely missing all the subtle contrast or cause and effect clues hidden nearby.
You need a full, diverse tool belt, not just a hammer, which is exactly why we need a highly structured protocol to override these mistakes, a cognitive checklist that forces you to use the right tools in the correct order every single time.
Enter the SIPMP checklist. This is the solution. SIPMP. Let's break down the acronym letter by letter.
S stands for signal. The absolute first thing you do when you hit an unknown word is stop looking at the word itself. Look left, Look right. Physically scan the immediate vicinity of the sentence for signal words. Are there any becauses, any howevers, any dashes or semicolons? Locate the structural markers.
Like the punctuation we talked about.
Spot on. The dashes, the commas, the contrast words.
I stands for identify. Once you find a signal word, you need to mentally categorize it. Determine the clue type. Did you find an unlike? Okay, that's an antonym clue. We're playing the opposites game. Did you find an including? That's an example clue. You are identifying the specific rules of the game the author is playing in that sentence.
P stands for predict. This is arguably the most crucial step. Before you even glance down at the multiple choice options, you must form a rough, simple definition in your own head based on the evidence you just identified.
Even if it sounds silly.
Absolutely. It doesn't need to be elegant. It doesn't need to sound like a dictionary. It can be as simple as, this word must mean something very bad, or this word must mean moving incredibly fast. Lock in your prediction. If you look at the answers before predicting, the test maker's cleverly designed traps will confuse your logic.
M stands for match. Now, and only now, you look at the multiple choice options. You are not looking for a dictionary perfect definition. You are scanning the 4 choices to find the one that closest aligns with the rough, simple prediction you just made in your head.
And finally, the last piece stands for plug back. Never, ever skip this step. Take the answer you matched, visually erase the unknown word in the original sentence, and plug your chosen word into the gap. Read the sentence silently to yourself. Does the logic hold up? Does the grammar feel correct? If it flows seamlessly and the meaning remains intact, you have your answer.
So what does this all mean? If I'm a test taker, I'm sitting here hearing this 5-step SIPMP method, and I'm thinking, that sounds exhausting. I only have 54 minutes.
Yeah.
Doing a rigid, multi-step mental checklist for every single hard word I encounter is going to take way too much time.
It undeniably feels slow at first. It is like learning the intricate steps to a complex dance.
Yeah.
When you first practice it, you are overthinking every movement. It might take you 30 seconds to consciously run through the SIPMP acronym.
Right.
But with deliberate, repeated practice, cognitive automation takes over. After you do it 50 times, SIPMP stops being a checklist and becomes an involuntary reflex. It happens in fractions of a second. You see a word, your eye instantly jumps to the, although your brain predicts opposite, you match, you plug, and you move on without breaking a sweat. It ultimately saves you massive amounts of time because it completely eliminates the paralyzed staring phase.
Sounds like a pilot going through pre-flight checks. The first few times they have to read the manual. Eventually it's just pure muscle memory. Their hands just know where to go.
Perfectly said.
As we move toward the close of our deep dive today, I want to reiterate the core truth we started with. A high score on this test, or success in any rigorous academic endeavor, is about clear thinking under extreme pressure. It is not about possessing a perfect encyclopedic vocabulary. Active reading is the ultimate goal. You are not passively absorbing words like a sponge. You are aggressively wrestling with the text, interrogating the sentences, and demanding that they reveal their hidden meaning to you.
It is an active, dynamic engagement with the author's mind. You are following their breadcrumbs. You are a participant in the communication, not just a bystander.
And to make sure you actually build this active reading muscle, we have a challenge for you, the listener. We call it the Listener's Challenge.
Oh, this is a go.
For the next 7 days, whenever you are reading a news article, reading a textbook, or even just watching TV with the subtitles turned on, and you hit a word you do not know, you must pause. Give yourself exactly 5 seconds. Resist the overwhelming modern urge to pull out your phone and check the dictionary app.
It's hard, but you have to resist.
Instead, hunt for the clue. Look at the surrounding sentence. Formulate a rough, simple prediction of what that word means based purely on the context. And then, only after you've locked in your prediction are you allowed to check the dictionary to see if you are right.
That 5-second pause is where the absolute magic happens. That is where new, resilient neural pathways are formed in your brain. And I want to leave you with a broader, much more profound application of this concept.
Let's hear it.
Because what we are really talking about today extends far beyond the rigid boundaries of a standardized English test. The skill, the ability to infer meaning from surrounding context, to read the structural logic of a claim, to hunt for evidence is not just for getting a good score. It is the ultimate defense against misinformation in the real world.
That is a brilliant point. It's a life skill.
It truly is. When you learn to read not just the individual words, but the underlying structure of an argument. When you meticulously analyze the context surrounding a claim, the cause is being attributed, the specific examples being chosen to manipulate you, the contrasts being hidden, You cease to be a passive consumer of text. You become a critical, empowered consumer of all information. A strong reader is a protected citizen. They cannot be easily manipulated by a single scary-sounding word or a sensational headline because they know how to independently evaluate the entire sentence, the entire paragraph, the entire reality surrounding it.
You are building an impenetrable shield of critical thinking. And if this deep dive completely changed how you look at vocabulary, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more strategies that will change the way you learn.
It takes immense dedication to rewrite your reading habits, but the rewards are genuinely transformative.
Trust the process. Trust the clues the authors are leaving for you, and trust the hard work you are putting in every single day. You are far more capable of unlocking complex language than you realize. Keep investigating, keep questioning, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.